So for the first lesson of Unit 3, your Bellwork problems, we want to find the radius, or the radius and diameter, whichever one we're not given. So if you think about it, if you are given the radius, what do you have to do to the radius to find your diameter? In a circle, if we have that the radius goes halfway, to get the diameter goes all the way across, we'd have to multiply it by 2. So we have diameter is 2 times the radius. If we are given the diameter and we're looking for the radius, we want to take half of the diameter to find the radius or divide by 2. So when we're answering number 1, if the radius of a circle is 5.2, what is the diameter? We're given the radius and it's 5.2. I'm going to plug that in for R. And what is 5.2 times 2? 10.4. So our diameter is 10.4. For number 2, if the diameter of a circle is 23, what is the radius? So I know the diameter is 23. I'm going to plug that in for D, and I have to divide that by 2 to find my radius. What's half of 23, or 23 divided by 2? 11.5. And that would be our radius. I would suggest writing these down in your notes because you have a couple homework questions that are very similar to this. Okay, today we are talking about circles. Our target is students will be able to identify the radius and diameter of a circle and find the area and circumference of circles and semicircles. Okay, we have a few new vocabulary words. The first one is circle. A circle is a set of all points in a plane that are the same distance from a point, and that point is what we call the center. So they're the same distance around the center. Does anyone know what we call the distance around a circle?
Circumference.
Circumference. The circumference is the distance around a circle. You might remember from the Bellwork, the blank is the distance across a circle through its center. Which one goes all the way across? Diameter. And if it only goes halfway, it is our radius. So the radius is the distance from the center to any point on the circle. Okay, there are a few formulas that we're going to be working with for this unit. These formulas are something you need to memorize. They're not on your reference sheet. For circumference, there are 2 different formulas you can use. You can use pi times diameter, or we know that the diameter is 2 times r. You can use circumference equals 2 pi r. 2 times the radius is where you get your diameter, so those 2 are equivalent formulas. You can use either one. For area of a circle, we use the formula pi times radius squared. When you square a number, you're squaring the radius, you multiply it by itself, and then by pi. What is our value for pi? 3.14. It keeps going, but when we use it to find area and circumference, you can stop at 3.14. Sometimes you might see it written as 22/7. That's another approximation for pi. For a semicircle, if you're thinking of the area, a semicircle would be half of a circle. So you find 1/2 pi times radius squared, or you can write that as pi r squared divided by 2. And if you are finding the circumference of a semicircle, you could do half of your circumference. If we take out that 2 in front of 2 pi r, we'd be left with pi times our radius, and then we have to add in this part right here, which is our diameter. We also have to label the parts of our circle. So if we look at this point right here, this is pointing to our center. This line right here is pointing to, if it's only going to the center from the outside, it is the radius. And if you look at this one, it has the 2 arrows pointing to the line that goes all the way through. That's our diameter. Okay, we're going to go through a couple examples together, and I'm going to have you try a few on your own. For 1 and 2, we want to find the area and circumference of each circle. When I'm solving for both, I like to have my radius and my diameter. So for number 1, we're given 70 inches. Is this 70 inches our radius or our diameter? Diameter. And if our diameter is 70 inches, what would the radius be? 70 divided by 2, which is 35 inches. We can start by finding our area. And what's the formula for area?
Area equals
Pi r squared. Apple pie r2. So for this, I'm going to bring down my pi. And what is our radius? 35. So we need to square 35. And when you square a number, you're multiplying it by itself. So we do 35 times 35, which gives us, that's our radius. Half of the diameter. 1,225. And I also want to bring down pi. This time I'm going to plug in my value. What value do we use for pi? 3.14. And our last step will be to multiply these two values. So we get 3,846.5. And what's our unit? Inches. And anytime we're solving for area, it's going to be inches squared. Okay, can we stop here? No, we also need to find our circumference of a circle. So for circumference, which formula do you guys want to use? So pi times diameter? So cherry pie is delicious. And for pi, what value do we use? 3.14. And what was our diameter? 70. So we're multiplying by 70. And 3.14 times 70 gives us 0.8, and our unit is just inches. Okay, so for number 4, we need to find the area and circumference of a semicircle with a radius of 6. So we're given the radius is 6 centimeters. What would our diameter be? 12 centimeters. We'd multiply by 2. And we want to find area and circumference. I'll start with area. If we have a semicircle, we're going to do our usual area, pi r squared, but then we want to divide by 2. So if I find my area, I have pi, our radius is 6, so we're going to plug that in for r. and we need to square that. What would be 6 squared?
36.
36. So we have 3.14 times 36. And what do we get?
113.04.
And since we're finding half of it, our last step would be to divide by 2. And we get 56.52, which we know is going to round to 56.5. Our unit is centimeters, and it's centimeters squared for area. If you look back in your notes, our circumference of a semicircle, we're using the formula pi times the radius plus the diameter. So let's fill in what we know. Our radius is 6, and we're adding in our diameter, which is 12. If we multiply 6 times pi, we're multiplying 6 times 3.14, and what do you get? 18.84, and we have to add in 12. And what do you get when you combine those two?
30.80.
30.84.
So is that the answer?
Yeah.
Oh.
We wanted to round to the nearest tenth, so what would this round to?
30.8.
8, and our unit is centimeters.
Oh. It's not. Area.